On today's show, we find out why Dallas was able to look so dominant versus the Buccaneers. Remember, you can listen on Apple and Spotify and watch on YouTube, as the links are in the description below. We'll also take a look at how San Francisco matches up against a talented Cowboys team and what the keys of the game will be to come out of the divisional round with a win. We'll cover all this and more. You're inside the Johnny Dell Football Academy. Hello, Niner faithful, and welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game. I am Adam Marino, as always, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell. What is up, man? We are so excited for Sunday. Man, I remember the old commercials, like the monster truck, Sunday. Like, I feel like that's what Dallas, San Francisco is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, my goodness, I think this game is hitting a fever pitch. When you look at the history of these two franchises, and also just reminds you, I think football really, for me, it seemed like it really took off in the 90s, right? And there were so many legends, and the 80s were great. The 80s, it had a big boom, but it felt like the era of national broadcasting and teams really, and the growth of the internet and things like that really pushed football. Because when you look at the 90s era, you see so many players from that era out today, right? In broadcasting, analysts, and for ESPN, NFL Network, all of that. And it speaks to, again, these were the two teams in the early 90s. The first half of the 90s, these were the two teams. And the rivalry that still exists, these were teams that for 20 years were not relevant against each other. But now they are again. And it is back to the original, the level of hatred for each other. I mean, I hate the Cowboys, all because of the 90s. And, you know, it reminds me of when I was a kid in the 90s, that when people would talk about games in the 70s, that felt like so long ago. And that felt like another lifetime ago, because as a kid, it was hard to even imagine anything from that era. And it felt like, why would anybody even bring this up of 49ers, or even the early 80s? I'm like, why is this a thing? The 1981 NFC Championship game is so far back there, that this is what does it matter? Why is that anything? And I look at it now and I go, that's not that long ago. It was 13 years, 14 years. And it just reminds you, because I feel it now. I feel that hatred for the Cowboys just like I did in 1994. And
no love lost.
No love lost. I mean, and it is carried through. And I understand some of the fans that were older than me at that time, how much they carried things through the decades. And I can't stand this team. And for me, as a young player, you go, yeah, but these aren't even the same teams anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is the Cowboys. I remember back in the Mike Nolan era, we got steamrolled by the Cowboys, and I was so furious because it was the Cowboys. Like, I didn't care as much if we lost to other teams, but you don't lose to the Cowboys. And so this game, man, to get a chance 2 years in a row to bounce Dallas out of the playoffs in the divisional round, just when they're starting to feel like, oh, we're conquering our demons, we are winning in the playoffs, to bounce them right out. Oh, nothing would be sweeter than that, except for maybe a Super Bowl. But I don't know, if you go on to win a Super Bowl, the divisional round win is the sweetest. That, in my opinion, as far as just for the emotional impact of what it feels like to bounce that team. Now, again, if you don't make that Super Bowl, then it's not so sweet. It's still good. You still get bragging rights. Our eyes are on the Super Bowl, but man, the potential out there to bounce Dallas is just so exciting.
So one of the reasons why I think it's just an exciting matchup is because it's a little bit different than, say, Red Sox, Yankees, Giants, Dodgers, Michigan, Ohio State. Like, those teams play each other all the time because it's on the schedule. They are required rivals, and it's great. The 49ers, there's nothing in the rule books that say we are supposed to play them twice like we play the Rams, or the playoffs aren't set up always for us to play each other. And so anytime we play, I don't care if it's preseason, it's a big deal. And so I'm super excited. And like you said, if we can bounce them out of the playoffs, that will be the most satisfying because, which we'll get into a little bit here, because our matchup will be either New York or Philadelphia, and that is just not the same flavor as Dallas. So out of all the games that are going on besides our 49ers versus Dallas, which we'll obviously get into, let's talk a little bit about the other matchups. What is one X factor that you'll be looking for, as we will be watching football all weekend from Saturday into the evening into Sunday's first game, and then of course our game? What is the one factor that you're looking at as a whole?
Jalen Hurts' shoulder. That's the X factor to me, because that team is different when he can run the ball. He brings a lot to their rushing offense and their rushing attack and how they put edge defenders in conflict. If he can't do that, if they're trying to protect that throwing shoulder because it's not feeling so great,
will they call plays for him to run?
That's what I'm wondering. Or, I mean, and they may even call some of those read option looks, but he might be given straight instructions: hand the ball off. That will be something to pay attention to, because they are a different team when he can do that. How's his downfield accuracy? We all know, we saw what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo once he was put together with duct tape and he was on the avulsion fracture in his thumb, and then the sprained shoulder in Dallas. He was 11 for 13 against Dallas before that sprained shoulder. After that, it was like 5 of 13. The accuracy just went down the tubes, and that's because it should have been a runaway game. That was the thing. We were at the point where it should have been a runaway game. Jimmy's shoulder gets hurt. He starts missing throws. He overshoots the throw into the flat, throws an interception, and lets Dallas back in that game. Dallas should have not been in that game. That's what's crazy to think about last year, is that we should have rolled Dallas like we did Seattle. And so Dallas is sitting here like, oh, you guys barely got out of there with a win. And you go, no, we got out of there because our quarterback was held together with duct tape by that point. And Dak can't figure out time management at the end of the game, and doesn't know that you hand the ball to the referee. He tries to hand it to his center. You don't let your own center spot the ball. That should be basic.
Imagine that,
stuff.
yeah.
Which almost made that win even better. I mean,
yeah.
I would have loved to roll Dallas, but the fact almost that you gave them a little bit of hope, and then it was snatched away by their own quarterback having such a horrible flub. Like, just it was that point. Like, it just reminds me of that picture that was summed it up so well, of Trent Williams walking off the field
and everyone flicking him off,
laughing at the Dallas fans. You know, because that was what that moment allowed, is that you were able, that it wasn't just we beat you. It was, we get to laugh at how bad you screwed that up.
Just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber, you go and pull a stunt like this.
Right.
I mean, it was Dumb and Dumber to the max.
But with that, going back to, Jalen Hurts, because what ends up happening in that game and what you see from Jalen Hurts' shoulder will affect the next game. I mean, is New York able to topple Philadelphia if Jalen Hurts isn't as accurate throwing the ball down the field, if he can't add that element of the run? And are we end up facing Giants team in the NFC Championship game? Or are we facing a Philadelphia team that reminds you a lot of San Francisco last year, that is coming into the playoffs banged up and is coming into the NFC Championship game really banged up and vulnerable? That's to me the thing to watch, because that affects us so much. And so it's Jalen Hurts' right shoulder. Keep an eye on it.
So, and it's not necessarily looking ahead, because they play before us. So we will be watching that game. Our eyes will be glued to the TV. It's going down Saturday. So we'll be excited to see who comes out of there. Now, let's get into what everyone came for. Okay, this is the varsity. This is the marquee matchup. So I want to get into a little bit first. What do you think Dallas does well, and why did that game against Tampa in Tampa, where Dallas has not won a playoff game since we were pretty much pooping our pants. Like, it's been a long time since Dallas won a playoff game on the road. Now, they did beat a team that lost 9 times, in which we destroyed by a billion. But let's get into it. Why do you think they looked so dominant?
So when you start looking at Dallas, and I watched through a number of Dallas's games, that was offensively one of their better games. And why? Well, Tampa Bay was missing both of their starting safeties. And that had a big impact because Dallas really likes to attack the middle of the field. And so that made it a lot harder for Tampa Bay to defend that area. Their safeties that they had in there were not breaking on the ball real great. There was some bigger windows for Dak. And some of it was just bad play by Tampa. I always hate to say that, as far as, always as a fan, because people go, well, yeah, of course you're going to say that. No, I'm seeing things like their Tampa was beat by alignment at times. And I mean that in that they beat themselves. Like, there was one play, they got an edge run. Carl Nassib was not lined up correctly. He was just not lined up correctly, and he was supposed to be an edge guy. He was inside shoulder of the tight end. They get a seal block on him, and they get a big run. If you can't set your edge, if you beat yourself with your own alignment, that's not the other team beating you. That is you beating yourself. You had things like that. You also had Tampa Bay is terrible at running the ball against an 8-man box. They just are. There was so many times that when Dallas was single high, Tampa Bay they would either lose a yard, they would get no yards, or Tom was checking out. And that was something that Dan Quinn, it was interesting to watch, was that Dan Quinn was showing a lot of single high, or he would kind of mud the look. Was there only one safety back there? Tom would check the play, and then when they would run the play, he'd back out into a 2-zone or a quarters coverage and get themselves into a good defense versus the pass. And it was Tampa Bay's almost resistance to sticking to the run, because they had a couple of them where they caught him in this and they had some decent runs, but then they would just go back and be pass happy again. You are playing into Dallas's strength when you're trying to do that. Dallas is very good at rushing the passer. They break on the ball quickly on defense, and they're opportunistic. They do get a lot of turnovers. And so if your plan against Dallas is going to be to come in and hold up versus their pass rushers over and over and over again, that's not a good matchup. You have to be able to make those guys think. Washington did that. Washington had a very balanced attack on them, and Dallas's defense did not look great. Philadelphia did that. And if Gardner Minshew had not missed some really bad opportunities, Dallas would not have been in the game that they won in Week 16. Gardner Minshew just had some really bad misses in there. So that could have been the option, but Tampa Bay just didn't stick with a run. They're not good at it. They're not great at it. And they were, I think, 30th in rushing DVOA this year. And that showed. And you go, yeah, well, when I look at the matchup of San Francisco and Dallas, that's not going to be the case. Dallas is not going to be able to do the same things they did. Dan Quinn likes to run a lot of man coverage on early downs. Kyle Shanahan is going to stress their corners. Their edges are not great against the run. They're okay, not great. Their strength against the run is right up the middle. So to me, I don't think you run up the middle on them. I think you run towards the edge, and you make those corners tackle. You make them come up and you stress them in man coverage because, like I said, early downs, they like to be in man coverage. So I'm expecting some tosses. I'm expecting some reverses to get on the edge, some of those bubble screens, and then the things that come off of those, where we have a play where we'll fake a bubble screen and have the receivers go out deep for a pass. We've burned a number of teams on that, where you have maybe a Christian McCaffrey halfback pass. We may see it. We did that versus the Rams when their corners would get really aggressive, and they like to play man coverage on early downs. And you saw Christian McCaffrey throw a pass. We saw Debo throw a touchdown pass running that same play. We saw the big play that was there and missed early on versus Seattle, where we went after Tariq Woolen with Juwan Jennings, and then we ended up coming back to a very, very similar play later in the game, and we hit Juwan Jennings down the sideline, where you fake a run towards the edge on that corner. You force that corner to respect the run, and he's in man coverage, and you get your receiver in behind him. So, that's the kind of stuff that I'm expecting to see, and it's an intriguing matchup because these are two talented teams.
One thing I think is going to be major, and you hear people say this all the time, but last week, the Chargers and Jaguars, it was so crazy to see the Jaguars were able to win with a -5 turnover ratio. We can fully put a stamp on this and guarantee that will not happen. If either team has a +5 turnover ratio, that team is going to win. I guarantee it. Turnovers, I think, in this game will be crucial. If we can hang on to the ball, Brock Purdy does not throw any interceptions, no fumbles, nothing crazy, just regular punts. People forget that a punt is a positive thing that can force field position. If we can advance the ball past the 35-yard line, a punt is not a depressing thing. To the chagrin of my mother, who thinks it's the worst thing ever, like, oh, well, we lost now because there's Wisnowski out there. I hate seeing that guy. No, like it's about field position, right? And so punts are not a terrible thing, and it's part of the game, and our special teams usually does really well. What do you think are some of the other X factors on the Niners side of the ball of what we need to do to make sure we come away with a win?
Well, you said it. It's about protecting the football. When you look at both of these teams, they are both very good at taking the ball away. San Francisco is number 1 in the league in takeaways, and Dallas is number 2 or 3. Okay, they're right there. We have 20 interceptions. They have 17. They have, I think, one more forced fumble than we do. And a lot of those are strip sacks because those guys on the edge, they get after the passer. They got Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. As much as we like to say Bosa over Parsons, Parsons is still a very talented rusher, okay? He's a very disruptive guy. And you don't want him getting in the backfield and coming after Brock Purdy. You don't want to force Brock Purdy into those situations. So taking care of the football, and that begins with establishing that run and attacking where their weaknesses are in the run game, which is going to be the edges and those corners. I have seen some very poor tackling efforts from Dallas's secondary. So you get the ball onto the edge against their secondary. There's opportunities for some really good plays there, and that will set everything else up. But you have to be able to hit those and establish that early. Don't ask Brock Purdy to drop back 45 times in this game. You do not do that. You don't do that. I don't want to see Micah Parsons going on Mike McGlinchey 45 times in this game. I don't want to see him going against Spencer Burford because they'll move him around, and they do a great job of scheming and giving him space. They will create space in their rushes for that if you give them obvious passing situations, which Tampa Bay did over and over and over again. So to me, you have to establish the run. And I know that's what we say almost every week with the 49ers, is you have to establish a run. No, it's very, very serious in this game. Dallas as much as we hate Dallas, they are a talented team. When you start looking at their defense, they're sixth in points allowed. They're tied for seventh in yards per play. They do give up some yards. They're 13th overall in yards, but they're eighth in passing yards allowed. Now they are 22nd in rushing yards allowed. And again, it comes down to the edges. That's where I see the weakness on them. They have a guy, number 97, Osa. I'm not even going to try and say his last name. It's okay. It's a crazy name. They have a guy in the middle who he doesn't get a lot of attention. He doesn't have a lot of he's like fifth in the team in pressures. He doesn't get a lot of tackles. He's a dirty work guy. Who was our DJ Jones. He's a guy that eats up blockers. He does the dirty
Vince
work.
Warfork, Tony Saragusa are some names that come to mind, right?
Yeah, and I would say even more role player guy, because he's not going to pop off the film like those guys and have some big pressures. Because he's not a guy like that nobody knows about, but he's in there. He's a little bit undersized. He's like 280 pounds of defensive tackle, but he's a powerful guy, disruptive, fast. He's quick. And so the matchup of trying to account for him and take care of him in the run game will be big. How Philadelphia handled him was they were constantly trying to get Dickerson on Osa, and they were able to run the ball up the middle when they got Dickerson on Osa. But, side note, when you watch Dickerson on tape, that dude is a beast. I think you're talking about the next great guard in this league. He was a monster. So if we face him, that'll be a big challenge. But Dallas, they're good. They're good offensively. They're third in their defense. They're third against rushing touchdowns allowed. So they don't allow a lot of rushing touchdowns. So getting that going, not asking Brock Purdy to drop back against those pass rushers and taking care of the football will be big. Dallas will give you opportunities to take the ball away. They will. Dak will probably do that. He's not facing a Tampa Bay defense that's depleted and running on empty. He's facing a very talented defense in San Francisco. I don't think their run game matches up well against us. I don't. I think Ezekiel Elliott is not nearly as explosive as he used to be, which is so weird because the guy's only 27 years old. I saw that on Twitter the other day, and I went, no way, because it feels like he's a 32-year-old running back at the end of his career. He's 27, but he doesn't look anything like he did 5 years ago. And Tony Pollard can be explosive if you get him in the open field, but if you make him run east and west, he's done. He's a north and south runner. Once you make him go east and west, he's done. So it's going to be clogging up the middle, taking on those guys, and they have the injury to Jason Peters. He has been ruled out of the game, so they're now kicking a rookie that was playing left guard to left tackle, and they're bringing somebody else at guard. I don't think their offensive line is set up to establish their run, and that's going to make Dak give you some opportunities. So it's all about takeaways and taking care of the ball.
So all of this talk about what Dallas does well is starting to make my skin crawl, and I wanted to get into the reasoning why. And so I want to know what your like top 3 reasons on why you hate Dallas, and I'll start by giving you one of mine. And remember, we love your comments, guys. Please let us know why you hate Dallas in the comments. The first reason for me is their owner, because what Jerry Jones has done. Now, if you are a Cowboys fan, you either love him or hate him. You love that the team is so popular and all that he's done with the Super Bowls that happened while we were pooping our pants a long time ago. But you also hate him because he tries to make the team relevant even when they're not, and it's just everyone always talks about it. But that's why I hate him, is that when the Cowboys are terrible, or when the Cowboys go 8-8 or 8-9 or 9-8 now that it's a 17-game season, when the Cowboys do that, it's the same as if the Jaguars do it, but no one talks about the Jaguars. We still find a way through Skip Bayless or through Twitter all day, whatever it is, people are still talking about Dallas. Now, Dallas fans love that. See, we're in your head rent free and blah, blah, blah. But that's why I hate you, though. But that's the reason why, is like that aura of America's team. You're not America's team. So stop it. Like, that's kind of my take, and that's my main reason.
Yeah, I hate them calling Dallas America's team. No, they're not my team. I live in America. They're not my team. No, don't force that on me. I don't want it. So that's number one. Number two, Jerry Jones. Go away. Okay? It almost reminds you, I remember when Mark Cuban bought the Mavericks early on. And maybe it's something about Dallas. I don't know. But I remember when he had just bought the Mavericks and he was a young owner and he was just there and he would do things like running out onto the court when there would be a scrum.
He was like a fan.
He
like
was
out there.
He was and he was like so out there as an owner. Like, we don't want to see owners. We
Right.
don't want to see owners as the face of a franchise. We just don't. I mean, like, does anybody really ever want to see Michael Bidwell as the face of the Cardinals? Like, no, you don't see that. Like, we don't want to see
Right.
that. And Jerry Jones, it's like it gives you the heebie-jeebies and just the I hate seeing him out there. I hate seeing him talking about the draft. I hate seeing him talk about free agency. Like, you feel like this should be somebody who is a football guy, not a fan who bought a team and now gets to be like playing like he's acting like he's playing general manager, or something like that. So it just, Jerry Jones just drives me nuts. 3, when I was 10 and the 49ers Cowboys rivalry in the 90s was at a fever pitch, and it was all of those games. My best friend was a Dallas Cowboys fan. And we would watch the playoffs every year. And I hated the Cowboys because of it. I remember the 94 NFC Championship game. I bet every single penny that was in my little penny coin box. I had my savings, little piggy bank. I had like $30 in there in change, and that was a lot of money, especially at that time.
For sure.
Especially for a kid. I bet every red cent of that on the 94 NFC Championship game with my friend. His name was Adam, and so because it was not you, and we were at his house watching that game, and it was so sweet. Opening play, Eric Davis picks off Troy Aikman for a pick six. It was glorious. It was amazing. And so, and then the love that Dallas has gotten ever since then, it just drives me insane. Like, I remember when Terrell Owens went and put the ball on the star. I remember a lot of fans were like, that was low class. I was sitting back there like, I secretly loved it. I loved it.
Of course.
I loved it. And yes, it was not good sportsmanship. I did not care. I hated Dallas that much. Because you know what he did? He did what every 49ers fan wished they could do.
No question.
And so, yes, like, and then Terrell Owens ended up in Dallas.
Yeah.
But anyways, I hate Dallas. I don't know if there's not a team that I've hated longer. Now, at moments, my hate for the Seahawks was greater, just because of the emotional pain they inflicted on us.
Right, but that's different. There wasn't that rivalry. Seattle wasn't our rival back when Steve Largent was catching touchdowns. It wasn't against us. He didn't catch those against us.
Right.
So it was just different.
Yeah, and so, but I still hated Dallas. Like it was one of those. I remember there was a game. It was Seattle and Dallas were playing, and I was like, I'm not going to watch because I was rooting for a tie because I couldn't root for either team to win. I was going, is there any way we can have both teams lose? I mean that and I think it was a game that we needed Dallas to win to help us out, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't. I will hope that Seattle loses, but I will not hope that Dallas wins. I will not hope for that.
Yeah, the Dallas hate. If you're listening to this, hopefully this resonates with you guys, and you should have your blood boiling as well. So let us know what it is that you hate about Dallas. You can always email us, and we're gonna get into now our mailbag. And so I want to pull it up here. It is from Ryan Morris. And he says, "Hey guys, loving the show and the added work you guys do each week. Much appreciated, and we appreciate you guys. Purdy is obviously playing at a high level at this point, which is awesome to watch. Outside of Purdy's quick first step and lateral movement, I don't see that he is much more gifted than Jimmy, including the arm talent. My question is, what do you think teams will try to do defensively to Purdy to take away what he's doing right now that is producing such incredible offensive production, and how do teams go about taking that away? Again, guys, can't get enough of the stuff you guys are putting out. Keep it coming, and thank you." So, Ryan Morris, thank you so much. Appreciate the love. Johnny, take it away.
Well, thanks for the question, Ryan. I think, yes, you're right. There's when you look at the skill sets of Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo, they are very similar. Jimmy might have a little bit quicker of a release. He's got one of the fastest releases in the league. Brock Purdy has a little bit better ability to escape pressure and to avoid that and buy some time. But as far as their skill sets are very similar, I think that's why you're seeing the offense operating very similarly. As far as what does the team need to do, well, I think you're not just facing Brock Purdy when you're facing the 49ers. You are facing Kyle Shanahan and the Arsenal. It's not Brock Purdy standing out there in a field saying, bring it on. No, he's got an army of giants behind him saying, we got your back. And that is the problem of any team facing the 49ers, is that your goal is not to stop Brock Purdy. Your goal is to stop the San Francisco offense. Purdy is a part of that. But to get to Purdy, you have to get through his bodyguards, which is the run game and which is Kyle Shanahan's ability to scheme. You have to get through that first before you can get to Brock Purdy. And so, Brock Purdy has one of the greatest assets that any quarterback could ask for, which is Christian McCaffrey. Since Christian McCaffrey has come on board this team, we're scoring like 12 points per game more than before. We're getting nuts. 30 yards more of offense per game, more than when he was there, and that's only 30 yards more because we put up 444 yards against the Chiefs because we racked up a ton of yards in garbage time, right? So we're putting up crazy yards, we're putting up crazy amounts of points since Christian McCaffrey, because now that even when a team can defend everything really well, Christian McCaffrey will still get you 3 yards. When you can defend every level of the pass well, Christian McCaffrey, you can check it down to him, and he's still going to get you a first down, and you're going to get more opportunities in the run game to keep going. So to get to Brock Purdy, you have to defeat the running game first, which is no easy task, and then you have to defeat Kyle Shanahan's scheme of doing this. And Brock Purdy is showing the ability that if he's not going to force the ball because he has a good running game to lean on, because he has Christian McCaffrey to check it down to, because he has Elijah Mitchell to check it down to. You have these opportunities now, so he doesn't have to force anything. He can dump it down. You get 3 yards on a check down pass, great. You're still on schedule. You'll get 6 yards on the next run, and you'll be there for 3rd and short, and you're probably going to get it. So we always love to focus on quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy has been outstanding. He's been an important key to the offense going this way. But to get to him and say, how are we going to stop Brock Purdy? You really have to stop everything before him. That's very similar to the way it was with Jimmy Garoppolo. Teams were that was our argument over Jimmy for the last 3 years, right? The teams they got to just stop the run and take away the middle of the field, and you go easier said than done.
Right.
If that was all it took to beat Jimmy Garoppolo, why were we winning like 70% of our games? Okay, because we have a great run game, because we have a great quarterback or a great head coach. It's easier said than done to just go after the quarterback for San Francisco because we have built such a strong team and there's so much in between the opposing defense and our quarterback. Now, ideally, you wanted to get it to let's make Brock Purdy beat us by dropping back 40 times. But they have to do a lot of things right and we have to do a lot of things wrong to get it to that point. So, what are the teams got to do? Pray.
Right. It's Sunday's coming, boys. So, okay, before we get into predictions, I just want to quickly again give you all the details of where you can find us. Again, you can on Twitter, you can find me at JA Podcast Host. Johnny, give them your Twitter.
I'm just at Johnny Dells, and that's Johnny Dell with no H, just as you see it on the screen.
Yep. And then you can always email us at Johnny Dell's Football Academy at gmail.com. We are we have a Facebook page, Instagram as well, Johnny Dell's Football Academy. And I'm going through, and we'll give you more information, doing a TikTok with some of the footage that you have and stuff. And we're going to be having more videos come out and more information soon on that. So we really appreciate everyone that's been following so far on this brand new journey. We mentioned a lot of people have said, man, we would have loved to have this at the beginning of the season. And just keep in mind, we've only known each other a month. And so I'm grateful for Johnny and his friendship. And this has been really exciting. And we are not stopping anytime soon. We are jazzed up and ready to go. So excited. So with that, I will give you my prediction and we'll find out Johnny's. I will say that I believe the Niners win 23-16.
Wow, low scoring game. Okay. I like that. I'm going the other direction. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring of a game. The question will be, and this should be answered within the first, I think 20 minutes of the game. Dallas's offense runs through CeeDee Lamb. It's not their running game. It's CeeDee Lamb. He sets up everything else in their offense. So that will determine whether it's on the high side or low side to me. But I think this game ends up being 31-21. That's what I think. I think Dallas ends, and now I think the score will look closer than the game appears. I think I think it could be 31-14 at the start of the fourth quarter, and we're locking it up. That's what I think.
So I would prefer that. I would love that. I think nerves. It's the Cowboys, and I think there's maybe some nerves that it may take Brock a little bit longer than what it took in the first game. So in the first playoff game, I should say. But I would rather be wrong. I mean, I'd rather it be 49-0, and I'm just laughing the entire time, just not stress eating as you do. But we will see. So with that, we will see you next time, faithful. Thanks again for all the support. We really appreciate it. We are not stopping anytime soon, as I said. So take care of each other. And as always, go Niners.